Good news, everyone!
It's Jake Ciely.
And there's a surprise in your cereal box.
I'm great! Everybody else sucks!
Let's get dangerous.
Yes, sir, random kid I just met.
It's time to check the list.
Oh, wait, you're serious? Let me laugh even harder.
You know what? You just made the list!
Hooray! People are paying attention to me.
It's all in football.
Sure, we talk about it all the time.
Really?
No, burn.
What is up, my Texans Ducks? Yes, they survived. We are on to the division round of the playoffs. The Texans upset the Browns. We were talking playoffs. Chris Meaney, stepmom Lauren, with myself, Jake Ciely on FTN. You can still use code ALL and get you 20% off over at FTN and head to The Athletic, where I did a kind of what I do every single year now is a look back at the projections where they hit really well, where they hit really wrong. And Meaney, I have to. You'll see why, Lauren. Coming to you on one. For the first time, I think, ever, I got a projection points, 189.1. The player finished with 189.1.
No way.
Dead on. Hold on. Here's the line. 81 receptions, 1,057 yards, 1,066 yards. The reason the projection points were on mark because the receiving touchdowns was 7.17, and the receiving touchdowns was 7 because obviously real life. So it balanced out by that just smidge of a difference in yards, made up that smidge of a difference in the touchdowns, projecting for fractional touchdowns. It was your boy Devonta Smith. Nailed Devonta Smith with a 0.0 difference for the first time ever.
That's fair.
But
That's fair.
I know. I was shocked. Because I always sort by like the biggest ones because obviously if you get to the end of the article, big shocker, the ugly Jahan Dotson. Outlier by, if you wanted the difference on him here, I'll give you exactly what it was. Negative 91.5 points off of his almost half.
No.
Yes, half. But that's the look back. And we're going to kind of mix that in to today because we're going to look at back some players that, not hits and misses, but kind of like anomalous, if that's the right word to say it. But from 2023, what we think for 2024, but also playoffs. Because, by the way, you see the commercial? See the commercial where they actually use that with Kevin Hart?
Yep.
The playoffs.
Yeah, fantastic.
I love the callback for the blood pack. I know.
That's the best. That'll never get old, in my opinion,
No.
the playoffs.
We have to talk eliminated teams, which means we don't get to talk to Texans to start. I'm just going to wear this hat. Maybe like I burned through the curse so much over the years that it's fine. The curse is done. Now it's good. And it's just like the Texans are going to the Super Bowl. Not happening.
Did you just curse yourself by saying the curse?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, we've never had a rookie
Ravens by
quarterback. Yeah, the rookie quarterback in the history of forever has never made the Super Bowl. So all that being said, like it wouldn't be a shock. So, but let's talk the Browns. The Browns eliminated. Obviously, they're going back to Deshaun Watson. It's so insane the way that his contract is. I was joking about this during the game when Joe Flacco started off really hot and then fell apart. Is his dead money is actually more than the NFL cap. Like that's how like they can't do anything. It's Deshaun Watson's back, but Nick Chubb question mark back. I think the biggest takeaways here is for the receiving game because I've seen a lot of people do way too early rankings. Meaning we talked about that too. You had some, I had some. It's David Njoku, but also Amari Cooper. David Njoku was unlocked by Joe Flacco. It's not like Njoku was having that good of a season. Wasn't even a tight end one for many weeks with Deshaun Watson and then P.J. Walker and Dorian Thompson and Robinson. But same thing for Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was good. Amari Cooper was fringe wide receiver 2-3. He wasn't unlocked until Flacco was throwing to those two options 55 to 60% of his targets every single week. And that's not an exaggeration. This was what I compared to the Chiefs back in the day with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. It was almost 60% of the target share. Two players. So with that today, Chris Meaney, knowing we're going back to Deshaun Watson, is Amari Cooper top 15, top 20? Can it happen with Watson? And what is Njoku for you for next season when you're thinking about it right now?
I feel better about Njoku. I just,
Really?
you know, he's more of a mismatch, and it is the tight end position. I think maybe they just kind of figured it out with him. There wasn't really a rapport. The offense changed, and I think we talked about it last week. I was mentioning the splits tools when they went to Flacco. It was more pass happy. You would expect a healthy Nick Chubb that it goes back to being a run first offense, but I feel only decent about those two guys, and I don't know about Amari Cooper. he's getting a little bit older. Injuries, like multiple injuries for him last year. I know the previous couple of years he was able to stay healthy, but he battled that, a couple points in his career as well, like the later parts as a Raider and early parts maybe as a Cowboy. He's having some issues staying on the field. So he's like a low-end wide receiver too. I don't know if he's going to even – I would say with confidence he's not going to be inside my top 15. But in Njoku, I could say top 5 tight end. Like I don't know if it was just a Flacco versus Watson or the other quarterbacks that they had. Maybe they just kind of figured it out like, hey, like let's get this guy the ball. Because when the ball's in his hands, he does like crazy things. He's explosive after the catch. Again, I think he's a mismatch. So I'd say top 5 tight end knocking on the door for me. And then Cooper is like the wide receiver 3. He'll get no respect again in drafts. You can probably take him as your 4th wideout in the sixth round.
So, Lauren, before we get to you, for everybody, we're all going to get through the one and dones too. We're going to give more advice for the playoffs, so stick around for that because I saw Kyle made a mention of his picks, everything. So, with Cooper, Lauren, interesting enough, do you want to guess how much of the percentage of his season came in that one game in Week 16? Just a random guess off the top of your head. How much?
37.
Good guess.
You overshot just a little bit. 23%. Still almost.
I was going to say 25, but I just went crazy.
I was
Still
gonna say
almost
30.
a quarter of his season. But, well, I bring it up to Meaney's point is that if you look at it, and if you look at this season even before Joe Flacco, and actually the first game or two for Joe Flacco, it was okay. But if you go to his points per game over the season, 12.7. That's actually his second highest. But he's been 12.3, 12.1, 11.8. He's been here before, but it took that game to get here. With the addition of what Meaney just said, he turns 30 in June. So are you out on Amari Cooper thinking forward with Deshaun Watson? And are you as positive as he is with David Njoku?
I'm not as positive as he is on David Njoku, although I do think that he can be a top 10 tight end. I don't think top 5. As when it comes to Amari Cooper, I think I'm going to go back to the Raiders, Amari Cooper, when I think of Deshaun Watson. And this is where this argument is going to go, is I just don't trust Deshaun Watson at all. However, Amari Cooper is a playmaker, but I think he's going to start trending back to what he was before, which is that boom or bust player. I don't think you can rely on him consistently. So I like where Chris Meaney has him as a low end wide receiver 2, maybe a high end wide receiver 3, and that's where I'm going to treat him next season. I don't think that's where he's actually going to fall in drafts, which is unfortunate, which means I'm probably going to miss out. And for the same argument, which is why I don't have David Njoku as a top 5, is because, again, I don't trust Deshaun Watson. However, I think the Browns coaching staff has finally figured out, oh, wow, we have an excellent tight end who, as you mentioned, Chris Meaney, is a mismatch. Let's use this guy. So I think the offense will start gearing towards David Njoku as much as this offense is going to go towards a passing game. Like you said, Nick Chubb is coming back. So I think this is going to go back to the run happy versus pass happy that we saw with Joe Flacco. But I really don't mind David Njoku as a top 10. It's the dumpster fire landscape of that position. But he has solidified himself as, someone that a quarterback can rely on, especially as a security blanket and in the red zone. So I do like David Njoku. He's a beast.
The biggest problem is don't trust Deshaun Watson.
And I don't either.
Watson, so
I don't think any of us, we can all agree, we weren't impressed with his game this year.
No.
Like, you can say whatever you want about Russ. Like, that was the thing. Russ, yeah. I mean, he just wasn't impressive as a football player. And I know, like,
you throw it at people's feet,
were
that
racked
doesn't
up.
help.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually so. Elijah Moore is in one of the players that was one of the closest, only missed by 13 points within the 50s receptions and the 600. Actually, the yards was 651 to 640, and then the biggest difference is actually would have been a lot closer if it wasn't 4 touchdowns to 2. But what it come down to on this team is what it came down to, not comes down to. What it came down to is not just Deshaun Watson, but this is a run-heavy team. This is 4th most rush attempts in the league. They are going to run the ball to win. Their defense is great. I don't think much is going to change next year, whether or not Nick Chubb is 100%, which means the pecking order is Cooper and Njoku, Elijah Moore, and I'm never going to want a third option. You don't want a third option on a lot of teams, unless you're like talking about the Rams and the Chiefs back when we actually could count on the Chiefs to have a third option. But even the Bills, I mean, like, look at the Bills trying to get the third option this year. It's been frustrating as hell. Most teams you don't want to go back to the Eagles, which is why we love Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. Is just projected, hey, I only need 2 people, maybe Dallas Goedert. And we've seen the inconsistency of Goddard, which, by the way, Chris Meaney, I hate with the fire of 1,000 suns right now because he destroyed my 9-way parlay just by 40 yards. I took the alternative 40 yards. And then the dude
He had a couple
drops
bad drops,
and
too.
planted, like he had it. He had it. And then like it was so anyway, it was a free bet for everybody that's been
What a
like, why are you doing a 9-way parlay? It's a free bet. It's like whatever.
Yeah,
Thankfully,
you can just shoot for the moon with those 3 free bets.
yeah, thankfully Mike Evans missed it by 2 yards too, because that would have been if Goddard would have got
Yeah, a
his
bunch of
and
drops
Mike
as
Evans
well.
missed it by 2 yards, I would have lost my mind. But speaking of losing their minds, here you go. Is it time? Like, look, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, like we know, like Mostert's probably back. I mean, his contract's very small for what he's been able to do, whether or not he's healthy and Achane's the lead, that whatever. Derek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Colt, whatever. The biggest question we now have here is, do they move forward? Is Tua the answer? In fantasy football, Meaney, is Tua the answer? Like, because maybe Tua's not even the answer, because if you take purely on points per game and not where he finished on the season, which was a fringe QB1 because of all the people that got hurt, like Joe Burrow and the rest, if you go by points per game, he's only like QB 16, 17, 18, depending on what site you're on. So is the answer for Tua where, you know, some of us, including myself, I had him, I think, like 10 or 11 because I'm like, I'm going to shoot for that upside. I'd rather take him than Derek Carr. Like, I just want somebody who can finish top 10. I don't want QB 17. But he basically was QB 17. So for fantasy purposes, can we answer that question that he's not the answer? Like, he's in the Derek Carr conversation.
Yeah, he is. And the problem is he just has no floor. You know, he doesn't run like these other quarterbacks across the league where, you know, if you only have one passing touchdown, he goes up against a top defense and he struggles and he only has one passing touchdown. He's not even really flirting with double-digit fantasy points where, you know, a guy like Justin Fields only has one passing touchdown. He still ends up with about 20 fantasy points. So
Yep.
I think he's from a real life standpoint, I think Miami has to bring him back. I think they will bring him back. I'm not sure I don't think he should get paid like some of these other quarterbacks have over the past, just like the Burrow and Herbert and Hurts of the world.
Daniel
But from
Jones.
he should get what Daniel Jones got maybe. But yeah, top 15. I would really need to see the schedule. And I know that's crazy to talk about, but this is a large sample size now of him struggling against really good defenses that can bring pressure on the road in bad environments. So he'll be a fade for me. I'm not totally interested, but he did, let's give him his flowers. Like, he did lead the NFL in passing yards. He had some really nice moments. They need to, I don't know, they need to get something more from Waddle. Waddle was a disappointment this year, and maybe if he gets back to being a rock solid top 15 wide receiver, then maybe Tua can be a top 10 quarterback.
Here's your answer. They face the NFC West. They face the NFC West next year, and they face the AFC South. So they get the Texans, Colts, Jaguars. Yeah, Jaguars and Titans. And then, of course, they get the 49ers and the Rams in that division or whatever. So does that change anything knowing that?
Hey, it's decent. It's decent.
Okay.
It's not like he's playing. It's decent. It could be worse for him.
It could be worse. Lauren, do you have anything to add to Tua, or can I ask you the next?
I actually like Tua. So I don't know, man. I disagree. He did have, I think, 6 or 7 games where he was 15 points or below. And from what I'm looking at here over at Fantasy Pros, because it was already up on my screen, sorry about that, he had 1 game of single-digit fantasy points, and that was in week 12 with 9.8. Now, you said he doesn't have a floor. I disagree. I think his floor is right around 13, 15. That's not a very high floor, and I understand that. But just like you said, Waddle was hurt too. There was some odd things going on. Maybe it was the Hard Knock situation. I don't know. But I don't mind Tua Tagovailoa. I think he's a very serviceable quarterback. He's not so expensive that you have to try to pay up for him in the very early rounds of next year's drafts. And I think he will start falling because of what we saw at the end of the season. So I don't mind taking a shot into a Tagovailoa if he falls a little bit further, because his upside is there. And I like that. I want to shoot for the moon when it comes to that. I don't want to have, like you said, Jake, the Derek Carrs. I mean, if we look at the quarterbacks that finished ahead of him, the one that I is Baker Mayfield. So do I think he's going to finish as a top 5 quarterback? No, I don't think so, but I still think he'll finish as a QB1. And I'll take that if he goes later on in drafts. But I don't have the same reservation as Chris Meaney does.
Disagreements.
I know. Let's fight.
I mean, you can have him. I'm not gonna fight over him.
I'll take him next year. Next year, Meaney, I'll take him.
Steelers for next year, obviously, the quarterback situation is up in the air. Oh, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens. George Pickens is actually in the column. George Pickens stepped in front of Deontay Johnson like a lot of us expected this year. The running back situation is kind of more of the question mark. It is Mike Tomlin again. Copy paste. This is going to be like people want to get rid of Najee Harris for Jalen Warren. And so it's just we're going down the same rabbit hole again, right? Meaning, like, unless you guys disagree, I'm just going to move on to another team. Like this, the Steelers are the Steelers.
Yeah, they won't change unless they get a new quarterback.
Yeah. Or even if I meant the running backs, they're not going to change anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, just their entire offense is not
yeah.
going to like. I'm going to get excited about George Pickens and his highlight reel catches and what he can do after the catch. But at the end of the day, they need a quarterback to get him the ball, and they're not going to have consistent like a running game if they can't throw the football down the field.
I will never get sick of George Pickens highlight reels being a little diva princess. I'll never ever get sick of those.
You did have a pretty good freak out there at the end of the game.
When you have George Pickens, this is great.
Yeah,
George Pickens was a little bit of actually, I don't even know it's a roller coaster. He's that what's the graph in math where like it's up at the ends and like comes down in the middle? He was one of those graphs, like basically a one drop
inverted
roller coaster.
bell curve.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of, but it's something else that actually goes that direction. But anyway, that was basically a season. He needed Mason Rudolph to get back on track, but it basically was what he was.
Rudolph, good God.
I know. That's it.
Where
Unlocked
are
him at
we?
the end of the year. That's what it was. So we have the three NFC teams. The Rams out. Simple here, but I guess the big question here is this kind of ties into the outliers. It's very simple. Puka Nacua potentially taking over, now the new number one next year. This is going to be a whole conversation we have in the offseason. Stafford, the mix. The big question we can try and answer right now, because we would assume as of today nothing's going to change. Like whether it's been which running back and which one that Sean McVay likes and what he's going to do. But the one thing that seems to not really change too much is in the offseason is that they go in with the person they had from last year. It was Cam Akers. They drafted Kyren Williams. They drafted, well, not on free agent Ronnie Rivers, but Zach Evans and all the rest. They bring in draft players, but they're usually not used until somebody gets hurt, something goes haywire. So with that being said, Lauren, I'll let you go first on this one. Is Kyren Williams, knowing that Sean McVay is like a Mike Tomlin, he's going to bell cow the crap out of his running backs. I mean, so much so that we're talking about somebody with 90+% of the touches. Is Kyren Williams a top 5 running back for next year, or is the fear of things that could go wrong because they keep going wrong with his backfield too much for you to say that he's top 5?
Oh, absolutely not. I'm taking Kyren Williams as a top 5 back without hesitation.
Are you going to go back to my conversation from last week's show when I talked about MVPs and I said Kyren Williams actually outscored Christian McCaffrey in the second half of the season on a points per game basis? Is there's a conversation where he could even be the number one running back, or again, is that getting too insane?
Number one running back might be getting a little ahead of ourselves. I'm going to stick with the top. Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me with the volume, his usage, his talent, the way he can break tackles. Oh, man. Yeah. Especially no Derrick Henry, because I'm off the Derrick Henry train. It's time. It's time. I had the last ride. It broke down a few times, but, it was there. It was fine. I'm all about Kyren Williams. All about it.
Yeah, and the way too early rankings, Adams RB2, but I think he's in the tier with Jahmyr Gibbs and Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson. But with all of that said, I'm not taking Kyren Williams in the first round. You guys know I'm not going to take Kyren Williams.
Wait, so you only have one running back in the entire first round?
In the end of the first, like I just know that I won't get him because he's going to be a top 5 pick.
Oh, because like, where he's going, like
yes,
you would take him in the first round.
If he fell to the end of the first, if he was like pick 8 or 9 and those wide receivers came off the board.
Wait. So you're going one running back and 7 wide receivers before you get to him?
Yeah.
Wow. That's it. Yeah. So anyway,
that's how I did this last year too. Like this is what I did. My RB2 last year was wrong and Nick Chubb, but I wouldn't have taken him till the end of the second either. I didn't spend the third pick on Eckler or Bijan Robinson. I don't do that stuff. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Well, that's the way I draft.
Okay, well, let me ask you, let me phrase it differently. If I told you today, because the easy answer, if I said RB2 or, you're going to take or because the odds of sports. But let me put it this way, Meaney. Kyren Williams, if you had to pick one side, finishes top 10, period, just top 10, or outside the top 40, which is more likely?
I would, like at the running back position?
Yeah.
for Kyron. I would say it's more likely he finishes top 10 than 40. If he would have given me 30, I may have said it's possible. Like, I don't want to crap all over him here, but
This is barring injury, Meaney.
yeah, he should get all of the touches. The volume should be there. He
It's
should
the
lose his
risk. I
job. There's some the risk that I have is the fact that I don't know if he can handle 26 touches a game. I don't know. Like, that's what we saw from him. He broke down halfway through the season. Can he handle? He's under 200. He's 5'9". I don't want to be disrespectful. There was a reason he was drafted in the 5th round, and now he's going to go ahead of Jameer Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. I know. I was going to get it as soon as I said it. Those two talents that went in the first round, like those are more talented running backs.
I understand because
Meaney hates Kyron Williams.
I know. Here's why. Like, I understand, but I will say this because the comparison, what you're bringing up here is something that's been brought up for another play. Not you, but a lot of people said this about Travis Etienne. 5'10", same weight. Like, we're talking about sliver of a difference in weight and size. They're basically the same running back. But it was the same concern. It was, can Travis Etienne be a bell cow? He's going to be drafted. He's going to share with somebody. He's going to share with somebody with power. He's going to get hurt if you kind of do this to him. And the argument's been there of, like, he's gotten dinged up. And you can be like, maybe this isn't smart to give him 20 touches a game. But at the same time, he's handled it so far. He's pretty much handled it. Like, he's gotten dinged up.
Back, though.
Right, but that doesn't... I mean, we're also talking about where they come from. What was the opinion coming out of college? I mean, a lot of people just overlook Kyron because what happens with the Notre Dame running back mystique is they're not that good. It's more their offensive line and how this team is. Like, we're talking about semi-pro offensive line because 2 or 3 of them get drafted almost every single. By the way, Joe Alt, top 5 potential pick. Like, every single year that offensive line is putting out first, second rounders. So anyway, point being is I understand what you're saying, Meaney, but like I think you could have that success. If you told me right now he was going to get 20 touches per week, I'd be like, he's going to get hurt at some point. And that's why I said, to throw out that craziness. All right, let's talk about the NFC East, or should we call it the NFC Least, like everybody's calling it?
The only division without a team left in the playoffs, too. That's crazy.
And had 2 shots at it, everybody. So, your Eagles, they're gone. For all intents and purposes. I mean, we know Hurts wasn't 100%. A.J. Brown was out. Dallas Goedert wasn't 100%, and then got himself hurt on a pass interference on him.
High school play calling.
Like it's just... And then the play calling didn't make a whole lot of sense. We can go back for weeks on the run game and all that type of stuff. Interestingly enough, Meaney, I was like pulling up their streak because Jason Stark and I did a piece on that Athletic of the craziest stats heading into the playoffs that were related to a lot of these teams, and that the Eagles finishing 1-5 after having 10 wins. Has it happened before? It's actually happened before. Fun article. It's just a fun one to be like, their point differential was actually one of the top 5 worst of all time, too, for those last 6 games for teams that had at least 10 wins. And not even just 10 wins heading into it. 10 wins on the season. By the way, do you want to guess what team has the number 1 worst point differential of the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season? Not the year, just the team. Just guess the team. It's the most miserable team of all time.
Giants.
No, the Jets.
Oh.
The Jets, yeah. So... yeah, it's always the Jets. That's why I was bringing it up. It's always the Jets. Is your team okay next year, Meaney? Is this like, look, this is a no. Here, look, for fantasy purposes,
don't bring me down.
This is a blip.
Just let him lie down on the sofa. Let's get our notebooks.
I told you this was coming.
Talk through your feelings, Christopher. I'm here for you.
No, I can't do it.
The defense is one thing, but we're talking fantasy. So Jalen Hurts still top 3. A.J. Brown still wide receiver 1. Devonta Smith still wide receiver 2. Dallas Goedert still a top 10 tight end. And then whatever the hell happens at running back, one of them is going to be an RB2. Are we still safe in saying that? That's the real question here. Like, that point, for fantasy purposes, nothing's changed in that way, right?
Right. Like, the play calling was atrocious this year, and Jalen Hurts still finishes quarterback 2. A.J. Brown still is 4th in receiving yards. You just said it all. All of those guys that you mentioned were great. They returned value. They weren't busts. Even DeAndre Swift returned value despite being disappointing at times down the stretch of the season. Was that on him? No. And they didn't give him the ball. They didn't run the football. Dallas Goedert suffered injuries now in back-to-back seasons. I don't know, maybe we're looking into that too much. Like, I'm not going to be drafting him as a top 5 tight end. I would rather have a David Njoku as a guy who probably finishes with more targets, maybe the number 1 on his team, where Goddard's always going to be the number 3. But yeah, a lot needs to change. You know, they're going to be without Jason Kelce most likely. I know he backtracked his comments this morning and said he didn't officially announce his retirement. You know, he doesn't want to make decisions emotional like that. Oh, for sure. But there were a lot of players that were kind of in tears on the sidelines after that game. But I think just the weapons are fine. There's definitely going to be a new offensive coordinator. There may be a new head coach, a change in philosophy. I don't want to – anybody that says that game was on Hurts is just – I mean, they weren't really paying attention, right? Because there was no guys in motion. There's no stacks. There's no bunch wide receivers, 10 unblocked pass rushers was the most of any quarterback has faced all year long. They didn't pick up any blitzes and they didn't do any adjustments. So it was just really tough for them to move the football.
Todd Bowles' defense they were facing. I haven't heard any, maybe a little bit, but nothing that really stands out about criticism against Jalen Hurts in that game. For me, it was the missed tackles. I think the defense is the biggest problem here, but that doesn't talk about what we are speaking to right now, which is fantasy. I will think twice about DeAndre Swift, depending on what this offensive line looks like. And if Kelce is coming back or not, that's a big piece of that offensive line. So,
well, what about the one
I have a little bit more
Swift is also a UFA, so they may just draft a back or bring somebody in or re-up.
I mean, it's the UFL.
UFL.
That's where he's going to play.
Sean Penny didn't even get any touches this year, so I'll be interested to see what they do at the running back position. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the offensive line may not be the same here. It won't be if there's no Jason Kelce. I know that they've planned this for the past couple of years, Jurgens and picking him a couple of years ago, and they could move him over. But you're missing a Hall of Famer.
I'll tell you what you do.
Kelce.
You know what you do?
What?
You screw over the Giants and go sign Saquon Barkley. There you go. There's your answer. And then,
they have a lot of cap space. Like they could.
I know.
Fix things around, but I think the biggest thing.
Extended middle finger on that play. If that were to happen, I'm here for it. Yeah.
Me too.
Make it happen.
The biggest thing is to get some linebackers and to figure this thing out defensively because it was real bad. And everyone saw it on primetime, but it's been bad all year long.
Right.
Well, something everybody did see. Let's talk about the last one. The epic collapse of the Dallas Cowboys. You want to talk about that? I mean, both these teams, you're talking about nothing that showed up here. Dak Prescott at least showed up in the second half because the first half, he was getting out to a lead just for the wrong team. Don't know what was going on there. And then CeeDee Lamb. We now have a new tight end, Jake Ferguson, which a lot of us had as a late round tight end to go get. So that worked out well. Brandon Cooks was exactly I didn't even include him in the projections. He actually hit. He was within 20, I think 22, 23 points. So it was pretty close because it's just Brandon Cooks. It's just, whatever it is. The biggest question we have from this team is twofold. Lauren, is Dak Prescott back into not just the top 10 conversation, but even top 5 or 6 where he's in that second tier? With that second tier this year was like Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, hurt. You know what you can do. Actually, Herbert wasn't even that great before he got hurt. But Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, kind of bombed. So is Dak in that tier? And then the second part that kind of tails on the end of that question, does that mean we stay away because that tier seems to fail so much? And then the second part being, is Tony Pollard just Tony Pollard? This is just what we had to face, and we should have expected this going into the season.
Yes, yes, and yes. That's how I'm going to answer that entire thing. So as soon as
you have to do it like Daniel Bryan. Then you have to go yes. There you go.
Yeah. The biggest takeaway for me out of this Dallas Cowboys offense, fantasy-wise, is the running back position. They tried this experiment with Tony Pollard and Rico Dowdle and Deuce Vaughn, I guess. This did not work. Something has to change when it comes to this offense for fantasy. And Dak is Dak. He gets put on this pedestal or he gets thrown into the dumpster. I don't see a lot of middle ground when it comes to Dak Prescott, when it comes to your fantasy opinion of him or your actual real football opinion of him. He's either awesome or trash. Yeah, so I as long as we understand this going into every single season, that Dak Prescott will remain exactly who he is. And he finished as top 4. He was QB4 on the season through 17 weeks. It was definitely a great return on investment if you went for him. However, this is going to depend on ADP. I think with the finish that he had that was pretty bad, I think where you can get him, I think will still give you great value when it comes to that. But we know this already. My biggest problem is what are they going to do with the run game? That is the biggest missing piece, in my opinion, when it comes to creating a balanced offense. So they have to have Tony Pollard and it's not Rico Dowdle. Something else has to happen. Or it's someone and Tony Pollard. I think they've proven that this season. So we'll see what happens on that running back front, which is, I think, the most important part that you brought up, Jake.
Yeah, they've really messed that up at the running back position. It's the reason I couldn't take them seriously is because at this time of the season, you have to run the ball and you have to be able to stop the run. And they couldn't do any of those things this year. And I think we were all right about Pollard. You can count on one hand how many times this guy had 20 carries in a game. And just to give him those touches, I think about you, Jake, when you talk about Chase Edmonds that year when he started to get some run when Kenyon Drake went down. It's like, whoa. Like, just because he's going to get 20 carries doesn't mean he's going to be, a top 5 running back. And
Joshua
Pollard
Kelly.
was it changed. Joshua Kelly. I saw Jay say Lamar Miller is a great example. Like they needed it. He's a change of pace guy. What they needed exactly was Zeke. Like, I can't believe that they lost the way that they did against Green Bay. Just one thing about moving the ball. Like, that was a team that gave up the most. Like, they were the worst first down team in all of football. You can run all over them. And they tried, but they couldn't get it done with Tony Pollard. They needed that short yardage back. Pollard struggled as a goal line back. I'll be out on Pollard if they decide to bring him back. I think they're going to make some noise at the running back position. It may be a Derrick Henry signing. It could be something like that. As for Dak, I mean, he definitely returned value. He was the guy that I wasn't totally interested in as QB 10, 12, roughly. I think that's where he was going in drafts. He'll be in that Joe Burrow, Purdy, and Jordan Love tier, I would assume. I would take him over Herbert. I would take him over Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, I think he could be a top 10, borderline top 5 quarterback, but I would expect Burrow to bounce back. I believe in what Purdy did. I believe in what Jordan Love did. So yeah, I don't know, quarterback 8, 9. I would take him there. I'm not taking the top 5 guy though.
All right. Well, then let's talk division playoffs and let's talk some for one and dones that might have gone one way or another. So I will answer a question, not with players specifically, but answer a question I saw earlier. So depending on where you are after the first round of your one and done, if you're sitting pretty, don't change anything. Like, Meaney and I are actually both inside the top 10 of the Sirius XM one. By the way, Meaney, I'm in front of you without a kicker. Ha 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 ha.
I think I'm in second.
No. I double checked.
Yeah. You got to double check. You got to triple check.
Did it move? Was there adjustment?
After Monday night, I had DeVonta Smith.
I checked yesterday. Legitimately checked yesterday.
I'm second place.
I'm looking right now.
Trying to.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying like.
I'm just saying I'm in second place.
Congratulations. I'm just saying, like, I noticed before, like, it legitimately. Who was on your team that had adjusted? Something adjusted.
I had DeVonta Smith. I had Bucks defense. I had those two.
I know. I looked at it. I'm saying I'm looking at it yesterday because I was bringing that up to say, haha, we're both inside the top 10. That's why I was ready for this.
I know that you're right there, but I'm in second. I'm behind Dan Glaskins.
I'm looking at it. I'm saying, like, I know. I see that you're in second. I'm saying something changed.
I don't know, dude. I don't know what changed, but when I saw
you
it
follow
after
what I was
Monday
saying,
night,
Lauren. I was like, I agree. Like, I see that you're in second. Like, I get that.
I don't know. I looked Monday night and I saw it, so I don't know if anything. I don't know what changed. I don't know, man.
Well, I don't know. Something's wrong with my fantasy league anyway. For me, my fantasy league. Could I say my fantasy league? Because when I go to the homepage of. When I go to the homepage of MySpace over here, I mean, it's basically the same design. Like all the links are like, I don't get the link. I've tried to clear my cookies and everything. Like the links don't show up like it used to. It's like old school.
Site is just so strange.
It could be the best fantasy site,
really,
period, because it has everything you want to do.
Every option you could think of, yeah.
But it was built with MySpace, and they haven't updated it, like legitimately.
Oh my god.
So anyway, all right. Point being, if you're sitting pretty. Continue as you are. But if you're way down the list, now you have to start going opposite. Like, this is where last week, if you would have went Packers, although, if you took Jaden Reed, it didn't hit. So, like, maybe Packers defense. You go for what's not common. Basically, you're taking Texans this week, that kind of stuff. Texans, because nobody thinks they're going to upset the Ravens. If you didn't use Nico Collins, go for it. CJ Stroud, go for it. The 49ers, go the other way. That's where you kind of think about going. But as things stand as of today, let's talk about that game. Both of you already joked that there's no way my Texans are beating the Ravens. But on the flip side of this, I mean, if you are going to use any Texans, it's going to be Stroud and Collins if you haven't yet.
Never said that. I never said that there's
Are you going to take the Texans?
The Ravens. I am at this point now where I have a lot of faith in CJ Stroud. A lot. Like
awesome.
he has proven things I never knew that could be possible from a rookie quarterback on a very, very bad team. And they have turned it around and just done something very special, magical, and intangible that I think is this beautiful glue that holds our love and attention for football. So I am not putting anything past CJ Stroud. I'm going to be contrarian, and I am going to take the Texans over the Ravens. I think that 2 weeks off for the Ravens was a mistake. And I think that as long as the Texans can capitalize on getting a fast start and the weather does not bother them, I think that CJ Stroud and the Texans can get it done over the Ravens.
Meaney, do you want to join her?
Come join the dark side, Chris Meaney.
I'm not going to. I was completely
Wuss.
wrong about last week. Not
You're
about
a
CJ
wuss.
Stroud, but I thought that the Browns would be able to. The biggest difference, Lauren, is that Lamar Jackson's not going to gift them 2 pick sixes in like back-to-back
Sure.
plays. CJ Stroud is going to play good football, and he's proved. I mean, this guy is an absolute superstar.
Do we
It's
not
amazing what he
remember
did in the
earlier
first
in
half.
the season when the Ravens could not catch a football? And we found out that they were practicing with like overly large footballs, like rugby balls or something. I don't remember exactly the details on that, so don't quote me. But like no one could catch a football. Like it's not like these Ravens are invincible. There are issues that they can have. And again, I'm gonna go
You're
back
not
to
wrong.
the 2 weeks off.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to this momentum that the Texans have. I'm excited.
I mean,
for this
technically, you
matchup.
could.
Or
From a
I'm
spread
not.
standpoint, I
I
think
don't
that they-
know. What
You think they cover?
I think they could cover, yeah, absolutely. From some of the things that Lauren's saying, with CJ Stroud and Nico Collins, but on the road, Lamar Jackson, they actually have a run game. It's gonna be really tough. I'm not.
Come join me.
It took overtime to beat the Rams, but they beat the Jaguars handily, and then they just blitzkrieg the 49ers and Dolphins. There's no world where like
Blitzkrieg's a great word, by the way.
I would love if you're right, Lauren. Obviously, go Texans.
I'm
but,
rooting
like,
for it as well.
I'm
then
doing it.
in
I'm
the one and
jumping in.
done, which is supposed to be this entire conversation.
Sorry,
Save the Texans,
you
Lauren.
said we're
Save
all
them
on
for
the
the
same
conference
page.
championship.
I
about
don't
the
know.
Texans
It's fair.
Ravens game.
I know.
I'm not.
So if we are you guys taking any Ravens? I mean, looking at this on paper, like you might have used some Texans. I actually did last week I used Nico Collins because one of the things we've talked about throughout this year, it's too late now, but is that the Browns run one of the most heavy, actually the most one safety, and Nico Collins burns one safety coverage. And then we just saw that in that game. CJ Stroud and him are great, I guess. Too late now. Again, too late. But
Yeah,
maybe you have Stroud. Maybe you still have Collins. Zay Flowers, Gus Edwards for the touchdown. Likely, if there is no Andrews if he's back, like, are you using any people in this game? Meaney, like, you're in a comfortable spot. I'm going to put it this way going forward. You're not, Lauren, but I'm going to put you guys into position because Meaney is in second place. Meaney, you are the comfortable team. You make those picks. Lauren, we'll say you're in the bottom 10. You're not, but you're taking that position. Who would you go for? So, Meaney, in this scenario, your team, would you take anybody from this game in a one and done?
I'm not going to. I'm going to stick with my strategy of attacking the NFC. But I think that Isaiah Likely
Ravens
is
defense?
I think Ravens defense is a decent one as well. Likely is probably a good play if Andrews doesn't play because he is close. And then next week, if Andrews is active, then maybe you won't want to use Likely. So this could be an opportunity that just use him one more time. He's the starting tight end, playing 90% of the snaps and getting the routes. But I would say Nico Collins. I'm probably going to use Nico because I didn't use him last week, and I don't expect him to move on. And I think he's an option.
All right,
But
Lauren, from
not
the
interested in
other
anyone.
side. So are you using all the Texans? Is it because you're going to like contrarian here?
I'm definitely going to use Nico Collins. I'm in on that. I wish I could disagree with you, Meaney, but I don't because I do think that Isaiah Likely is a great play in this situation. Because if we're looking at the other teams left, what kind of positional options do we have at the tight end? I don't know, man. I definitely agree with
Packers
Nico
you're
Collins, and I
avoiding
agree
because
with Isaiah
Musgrave has
Likely.
been back, and it's Musgrave and Kraft, and it's against the 49ers.
Yeah.
And you could
Porter
use
and Kate
Kittle.
Otten.
Yeah.
Kate Otten against Detroit, maybe, but on the flip side of that one, you use Sam Laporta. But the interesting thing is Tampa Bay continues that, and part of that was Dallas Goedert. But Tampa Bay has been pretty decent, and the one area they've been decent against is against tight ends. And then, of course, it's Kelsey and Kincaid. So there are some options. But all that being said, I would agree with the fact that if there's no Andrews, likely is the play at tight end if you can get to it. That being said, last week, Njoku was the play, and he was by far not the best tight end.
Wish I had Ferguson. Oh my goodness, man!
I mean, who was really doing
3 touchdowns?
How about who was on Kareem Hunt? I mean, come on, like seriously, like so. Yeah. Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones was at least on a sprinkle of teams.
I did have Aaron Jones. Yeah.
So speaking of that game, Lauren, we'll go to you first. Again, you need to play catch-up mode. You're all the way at the bottom for people that have went sideways in the first round. So, are you going heavy Packers? Are you going to go Jordan Love, Jaden Reed, Aaron Jones? Are you going to stack Packers against the 49ers?
That is exactly what I'm going to do.
Packers
I'm
defense?
Using them all.
Did you go?
I would not do that one.
Meaney?
Yeah, I think.
Are you going Christian McCaffrey?
No.
Deebo Samuel?
No, I'm not going to any Niners. I'm not going to play
really
any Niners. Yeah, and that may. People will probably catch up playing San Francisco, but I just mapped everything out in my head. I'm going to attack this Tampa. This is everything that I've said last week. I was going to attack this game. I thought it was going to be Tampa and Dallas. It's not. It's going to be Detroit and Dallas. I'm going to attack that game in the Dome. I think it's going to be the highest scoring game. I'm going to save San Fran for the next week in the conference championship week. And then I'm just going to have whoever. I'm going to have a full-on stack in the Super Bowl with Ravens or Chiefs or Bills. Mafia, relax. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. But I think let me
ask you a follow. Hold on.
Yeah.
Because they're all in play. Obviously, you just mentioned it. We don't have to. I mean, people know play 49ers. You said no Christian McCaffrey, but let me spin it a different way because a lot of people did do what you talked about last week and stack the Lions and Rams game. And what if you already used Kyron Williams? Obviously, it doesn't matter now, but also Jahmyr Gibbs. What if you went Kyron and Gibbs? So now your options are McCaffrey, Gus Edwards, Rachaad White against the Detroit Lions run defense, right, and David Montgomery. I mean, basically, you got Gus Edwards, David Montgomery, touchdown hopes, Christian McCaffrey. Maybe you play Aaron Jones against the 49ers, or you go to Rachaad White, or you got Pacheco against Buffalo. I guess the question being, if you're in a comfortable spot, what 2 running backs are you heading towards this week?
Yeah. I mean, you bring up a really good point because some of these backs are in really tough spots. Like Kyron didn't do anything against Detroit. I don't expect Rachaad White to do a whole lot. Tampa's run defense looks like the Tampa run defense is top notch over the past couple of years. So I'm not crazy about Montgomery. I already used Gibbs. My thing is I don't want to have Pacheco and Cook. Those are guys that I really like. I don't mind Gus Edwards. Singletary maybe is like a flex or an RB2. It's not sexy. But my thinking is I don't want to have, if I use CMC, I may not have a running back next week. Who am I going to use? I don't want to put myself in that spot where I don't have a back. So I'm just planning on having CMC for next week because I don't know I think Tampa could upset Detroit. And if I don't use Montgomery and all of a sudden Detroit is out, then, my hand is forced with a Chase Edmonds or something silly. So I'm just going to save CMC. But I think we can all agree, if you're playing catch up, you probably have to play CMC. Where I think if you're in a comfortable spot, maybe you can avoid a CMC. Maybe you can
play catch up. You can play catch up and pray that the Packers pull the upset.
Yeah. Well,
did you have a question, Lauren?
Then I'd be screwed.
I have a statement.
Yes.
I don't like this format. Can I just throw that out there? I do not like one and done.
It just makes you overthink everything all the time.
It is way too much thinking. I don't like it. I just wanted everyone out there to know this. I don't like this.
Jake, are you thinking hey, if you're near the top, just pedal to the metal, just play CMC, whatever, who cares, and figure it out next week? Because that's probably a decent strategy.
I'm not telling you. Now I have to play catch up now. I was ahead of you, and I don't know what the hell happened. You're not getting my strategy.
Just had to hit refresh. That's what happened.
I will say this is. I think it depends because the reason I threw that out there is because maybe, you brought it up. I don't really want to head towards Rachaad White or David Montgomery if you take Gibbs off. I don't really want to go to Gibbs. It's just, you mentioned that game for the run game is one to avoid. So if you went Pacheco in the first round, maybe you went that direction. I mean, all of a sudden you're talking about James Cook, the touchdown hopes, and Christian McCaffrey. So I think it kind of depends on where you're sitting. I think there's enough options. I guess the biggest question is for either one of you, from the lead side of being in the top 10, Meaney, and from the playing the catch-up mode version, Lauren, either one of you going Aaron Jones against the 49ers defense?
Yes.
Yes. Just because it's contrarian?
Because it's contrarian and I like being contrarian, but also at the same time, I know. I think that the 49ers are going to win. So if I have not used Aaron Jones yet, I am going to use this opportunity to use him and save someone like Christian McCaffrey, which is what you're saying. The matchup is terrible, but we kind of do this we do this during the regular season as well. Sometimes we play running backs, even though they have a bad matchup. Anything can happen in the playoffs. Anything can happen in football. So I am going to use Aaron Jones in this situation, regardless of the matchup. And I'm going to relate this to a totally quantifiable way. Packers are on a roll. They've got this oomph, this gusto as they're literally defying odds, just like CJ Stroud and the Texans are doing. I put faith and I put stock in that. So even though the matchup is not great on paper, I really do think that the Packers can find a way to get you points from a fantasy football perspective, although they're probably going to lose this game. But rely on Aaron Jones
over there.
And the secondary,
the
second.
the second. How does the secondary look better with two rookie corners?
I have no idea. This is weird.
Yeah. Man, the Packers are rolling. They're playing with a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
House money. They've won 7 of their last 9. Love's got a 21-1 touchdown interception ratio over that span. I already used Aaron Jones last week, but I would use him this week. He's been back. There's 3 games in a row.
That's why you're
4
in
games in a row
place.
now. Yeah, Aaron Jones and 3 touchdowns.
I don't know. Here's the thing. Do you know how many running backs have run for 100 yards against the 49ers this year?
Oh, my goodness. 1?
None. Lauren, right? You know how many ran for 90?
1.
None.
No, come on.
Season high 80.
30.
Ran for 30. All of them. Let's say.
But you can't actually pass on.
Look here. I'll give you the lead rusher each week. You ready for this? 31, 52, 17, 52, 29, 40. Oh no, 84 for Ford. Let's see. 39, 87, 35, 30, 47. Philly 13.
Yeah, but how many touchdowns?
Only
I think 4, maybe.
8 on the year. 8 rushing touchdowns. More right. 54, 40 or 52, 44, and then 31. There's a lot of 30s in there, Meaney. To answer your question.
That's not great. Yeah, you hope that Aaron Jones can catch a couple passes.
Awesome.
Part of that is just what the Niners do. They get up on you, and teams have to abandon the run. I don't even think the Eagles ran the ball once in that second half against them. But I still think he's an okay play as at this time of the season where there's only 4 games and maybe he can catch a couple passes. He's at least getting all of the work. Like he should touch the ball.
Okay.
15
well, then.
20
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's what I wanted to say, but the words did not come out of my mouth.
You can pass on them, by the way. I think you should use some of their options.
Yes. Yeah. Bucks, Lions, stacking the passing games if you can. So the last one is who are you, Meaney, from, again, a team in power position. Who are you, Meaney? The power position. Who are you taking from the Chiefs and Bills game?
I think I'm going to avoid that side, but I love Pacheco. Rice and what I noticed with Kansas City over the past couple of weeks is that they have just phased every mediocre player out of their offense. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes said, "That's it. We don't care about you guys."
Wait.
This is Rice. Kelsey,
what?
and Pacheco.
I was just gonna say, why is Kelsey still involved then?
I get it. But he still was a big part of the offense. When these teams played week 16 against Buffalo, it was Pacheco didn't play in that game. Double-digit targets from Rice and for Kelsey. I expect the same thing. Those guys are definitely options. I think Kansas City's going to win this game. I had them losing in my original bracket.
Wait. So then why wouldn't you take Josh Allen?
Save the Chiefs. Yeah, I was just going to say, I want to save the Chiefs, and I think Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs may be in a tough spot, but Allen and Cook, I know you don't maybe want to use your back with your quarterback, but Cook in that game, he showed us a whole lot through the air. He led the team in targets and catches in that game. They shut down Stephon Diggs. So I think that James is a good option. I'm probably going to save KC. The reason I'm back and forth, I wasn't super impressed with them beating Pittsburgh. Like that was a 1-score game with 7-8 minutes left in the game. And also they suffered a lot of injuries again on the back end. Like their secondary is really banged up. So I think Kansas City could go in there and win the game, but the game for me to attack is Detroit and Tampa. I know we just glossed over it, but that's the game to attack. There's gonna be tons of passing.
We brought it up like
tons of
5 times,
passing.
so.
Yeah, grab all those guys.
That's called glossing, Jake.
Lauren, what about you? If you're trying to play catch up, which way are you focused? Are you going to attack this game heavy?
I don't think so. Because this is going to depend on who you think is going to advance. I think the Bills are going to advance over the Chiefs. So I think this is a smart play to avoid. But this isn't the only matchup that has high upside for fantasy relevant players. And I'm going to, again, repeat what both of you are saying, glossing, not glossing. The game to attack here is the Bucks and Lions game.
I'm looking
Steve
right
Rice
now.
is awesome, by the way.
Oh my God, I love Rasheed Rice.
So
I think
good.
I'm pretty sure all three of us were on. Someone was on Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. I was not. I was always on the Rasheed
I
Rice
don't think
train.
anybody
I
here
will
was
put
on
that out there.
Kadarius Toney.
I think
but
I
definitely
was.
like
No.
Sky.
Sky
Definitely
Moore.
like Sky.
I love
Rasheed
Rasheed
Rice
Rice.
is Sky Moore. Sky Moore is actually in the projections. He's a miss, mostly because it was just target share. It's just, how do you project him for what ended up being close to 20% target share? As of right now, mid-20s, low win for that game, to give you an idea of where that game is sitting for not being a concern. Fortunately, they're not playing Friday or Saturday because they would have snow again. By the way, maybe build an effing dome because, like, at least retractable. You're like seriously. I get I love snow games.
It's part of their atmosphere.
No.
It's like their 12th man in Seattle.
You can
It's
have
their-
both. No, it's not, because your 12th man is hurting your own man. You're
It
hurting
actually is. Yeah, I
Josh
agree.
Allen and your offense.
Bills Mafia agrees with you. I have a lot of friends that love the Bills. They're quote unquote Canada's team, is so close to Toronto. They played games there in Toronto years ago. And they are building a new stadium, but they're not putting a roof over it. Like, it
No,
doesn't
they're
make
heating the field. What the?
Yeah.
Who cares?
They are limiting Josh Allen's upside. Again, if they played that game on Saturday, did you guys check the weather or what it would have looked like? Was it Saturday?
Oh
or
God,
Sunday?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was whiteout conditions.
Did you see
You
the tarp that
couldn't
looked like it was the
see.
ocean? I know.
Whiteout.
2
yeah.
feet in front of you. The Steelers would have hung around in that game and maybe beat them. They already lost a playoff game over the past couple of years when the opposing team threw the ball 3 times.
Yeah.
3 times in a game that limits Josh. I'm in total agreement. And I know all of Bills Mafia is as well, but they don't care about you. Or
You could do one of, like I brought it up. You could do like the Miami Marlins in baseball. You can do one of the ones that are combined where you have, I think even the Houston Astros, like where it's a dome, it's retractable roof, but you also still get the outside. Like
Yeah.
you can still let the cold air in, like you want, like, but there's a way to mitigate the factor where you're not destroying your quarterback and you're like, why would you want to take the Bills and mute that into a defensive scoring game? Like that's not what you want. Yeah, sure, the defense has been good in past years, but stop hurting your own guy.
If you
Like,
had
you're the
like
Giants,
a Mason
put
Rudolph,
that into like
Yeah.
Alaska, and then you're like, hey, it doesn't matter that our quarterback stinks. You know, there you go.
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Anyway, we didn't even get to the 2023 outliers, so we're going to do more of that in this offseason. And build a list. I left some of the players we were talking about today because there was a few outliers in there that we kind of pulled into this conversation. But we'll be back next Wednesday to talk about championship round. More one and done, as Lauren loves it so much. And hopefully maybe some of these 2023 outliers. By the way, somebody else she loves as well is Austin Eckler's on that list. At Stephon Lauren, at Chris Meaney, and I'm at All In Kid behind Chris Meaney in the standings now that we check. And we'll be back on Wednesday. Hold on to that spot. Take down number 1, Meaney. I had no shot because I'm leaving my kicker spot empty. So there you go. Free points.
True.
It's dumb as it's bat crap, duck crap, bulls crap, whatever. Crap. Goodbye.